In a survey conducted by
Talks to avert a debt ceiling crisis they were expected to resume today. As you know, the U.S. could default on its debt as soon as June 1 with devastating consequences. Congress controls how much money the government can borrow to pay its bills. Republicans rejected recent White House proposals to reduce the deficit, but there are reports that there is a glimmer of hope as a result of those meetings earlier today. A long-awaited report criticized the FBI's probe into the 2016 Trump campaign. In 2019, Special Counsel John Durham was tasked with examining how the government investigated Russian interference in the 2016 election. He found that the FBI rushed to investigate Russia's possible links to Donald Trump's presidential campaign, but the findings weren't nearly as explosive as the former president predicted. The report, sadly, will probably fuel rather than end partisan debate about political involvement in the Justice Department and the FBI. At least 3 people were killed in a shooting in New Mexico yesterday. An 18-year-old gunman used 3 firearms, including an AR-style rifle, during a rampage in a neighborhood in Farmington. Multiple people were also injured. The gunman was killed at the scene. The motive isn't clear, but authorities believe the attack was random. Florida in the news again. This time it is defunding diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at colleges and universities. A bill signed by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis yesterday bars colleges in Florida from spending money on DEI programs and even limits how race can be discussed in many courses. Now, this is part of a conservative attack on DEI programs, which often help to increase student and faculty diversity. Critics such as DeSantis say the programs are divisive. Well, a woman who said she worked for Rudy Giuliani during the last 2 years of the Trump administration alleged in a wide-ranging lawsuit that Giuliani, the former president's personal attorney, discussed selling presidential pardons and detailed plans to overturn the 2020 election results. In this jaw-dropping 70-page complaint filed in state court in New York, Noelle Dunphy said that after Giuliani hired her in January of 2019, he sexually assaulted and harassed her, refused to pay her wages, and often made sexist, racist, and anti-Semitic remarks. Well, another story about Florida. A Florida teacher says she's being investigated by her school and the state's education department after showing her 5th grade students a Disney animated movie featuring an openly gay character. In a viral TikTok video post Saturday, Jenna Barbie, a teacher at Winding Waters K-8 school in Brooksville, Florida, and now this is about an hour north of Tampa, she alleged that a parent who also serves on the local school board reported her for screening the 2022 title Strange World. Well, Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson took office this week. He is facing an influx of migrants in desperate need of shelter as pressure to build support among skeptical business leaders and summer months that historically bring a spike in violent crime. Progressives view Johnson's election as evidence that bold stance lead to victory at the ballot box. Now, his first term leading the nation's 3rd largest city will test the former union organizers' ability to turn those proposals into solutions for stubborn problems worsened by the coronavirus, including public safety, economic growth, and housing affordability. This is Areva Martin in Real Time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. I am joined in this hour by the Dream Team. That's Professor Larry Walker of the University of Central Florida and Dr. Omikango Dabinga. He's a professor at American University. He's also the author of a new book that hits the bookshelves this summer. It's called Lies About Black People: How to Combat Racist Stereotypes and Why It Matters. And in hour 2 on Areva Martin in Real Time, I go deep on the topic of pedestrian accidents and who's getting killed on the streets of America. There's a new study out that shows, not surprising, believe African Americans are at a greater risk of being killed by auto accidents. I asked an expert why that is and what we need to do in this country to make these streets safer for Black folks, because we outside. Well, before I bring on my guest, here is what I'm thinking about in real time. Now, we have all heard the saying that age ain't nothing but a number. Well, Martha Stewart is living proof. At 81 years old, she is the oldest person ever to grace the cover of a Sports Illustrated magazine. And she's not just on the cover, she's on the cover in a bathing suit. Some would say she's doing the damn thing. Now, she's been on lots of magazine covers throughout her career. You've seen her on cooking magazines, lifestyle magazines, even magazines about money and finance. But her latest cover photo will surprise a lot of people. This best-selling author and businesswoman is on this iconic swimsuit issue for Sports Illustrated 2023. Now, in the first cover, Martha is lounging on a couch surrounded by this tropical interior in this white one-piece bathing suit. And this sheer cover-up, she's flaunting her very, very toned legs. Now, Martha Stewart says she was apprehensive at first about this photo shoot and being on the cover of this iconic magazine in a bathing suit. But then she went on to explain that as she approaches her late in life ventures, she sees them as opportunities to be successful in living. She says, I think all of us, and I think this is great advice, should think about good living, successfully living, and not aging. She says the whole aging thing is so damn boring. Now, some folks online have been just clowning Martha. They're saying these photos are airbrushed and that she's had all this surgery. Others are commenting about her age, that an 81-year-old woman shouldn't be wearing a bathing suit on the cover of a magazine. I say to all those folks, get a life. First of all, men her age are frequently portrayed as sex symbols on covers of magazines. Just look at Harrison Ford. He's 80 years old, and he's on the February cover of the Hollywood Reporter, basically saying, I don't give a F about anything. And nobody is complaining that Harrison is too old. And then to all those folks that say that Martha's photos have been airbrushed and she's had all this surgery, all of that might be true. But the reality is Martha Stewart looks like a well-preserved New York Upper East Side woman that has had the benefit of great food, great grooming, great surgeons, great skin care, great dermatologist, a great hairstylist, masseuse, a great big fat bank account, and the pleasure of living an accomplished life, and to boot, a great photo shoot and photoshopping. So as I make each trip around the sun, for me, I say, sign me up for the life of Martha Stewart. Well, that's minus the white woman part, but I think you know what I mean. In real time, I say, bravo to you, Martha Stewart. Keep doing the damn thing. When we come forward, more of today's trending news on Areva Martin in real time.
I'm young, gifted, and black. KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation in scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the
public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think.
All right, it's time for today's trending news and expert analysis. I'm joined today by Professor Larry Walker and Professor Omikango Dabinga. All right, I'm going to ask you guys if you want to weigh in on the Martha Stewart Sports Illustrated bikini photo shoot debate. You can say yes, no, you can have a comment, you can pass, whatever you want to do. But I think you guys should weigh in.
No pressure. No pressure.
But Larry, Professor Walker, Harrison Ford, can you throw that photo back up there? Rashad, he's 80. He's on the cover of Hollywood magazine, looking all debonair. And there wasn't all this talk on, Twitter or social media about this photo, but then put Martha Stewart, 1 year older, on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and people started losing their minds.
Yeah, so I think we have, in terms of those individuals who are being critical, I think we have two issues here, clearly, ageism and sexism, which are two issues that our society struggles to confront and address. So kudos to Martha Stewart for being on the cover of the magazine. As someone as myself who's moving along in those decades in life, I'll just leave it at that. And takes pride in working out and eating healthy, etc. Kudos to her. I mean, I think it's really important that we do have images of individuals that challenge our ideas about what norms are. And like I said,
I love what you're saying. And I love that Martha Stewart herself said she was proud of her toned legs. Now, you don't usually hear an 81-year-old Dr. Dabinga talking about their toned legs. And she talked about her Pilates, and she stopped eating carbs and pasta to get ready for this photo shoot. Now, a lot of folks are saying, hey, this is a lot of, airbrushing, and look at all the surgery she's had. But so what? I mean, if you go to anybody's Instagram page, they got 5 million filters on their Instagram page. So now all of a sudden we have this standard where we have to be, filter free in our photos. Is that the new standard? I think you're muted, Dr. Dabinga.
I think that everything that you're both saying is true. My issue with it was the fact that I think, it's great to have somebody of that age there. But my question was really why Martha Stewart? Primarily because, she hasn't been somebody who's been engaged in athletics and things like that. And so I'm thinking Sports Illustrated. I'm thinking somebody like a Jane Fonda, for example, who has had a history of, been involved in things relating to fitness and the like. But I think that it's really important. Your double standard that you're talking about with Harrison Ford is absolutely right. I think the whole thing about having somebody who is 80 plus and committed to living their best life is extremely important as well. And I know that some people brought up the idea of having someone who's an ex-convict out there, but do we want redemption stories or not, right? So we can't be hypocritical about that either. And there have been other people, Michael Vick and others, who have been on the cover of Sports Illustrated who are part of redemption stories. So again, my only thing was I didn't feel, because you're talking about the airbrushing and all of that, I didn't feel like she had a lifelong commitment to fitness that would merit a Sports Illustrated cover versus somebody like a Jane Fonda. But outside of that, I don't have any issues with what they did and what they're trying to do.
Well, I can tell you that Megan Good is also a part of this 2023 cover. There's several other women who are going to be on this cover. So I don't know what any of their commitments to life.
I wasn't aware of that either. So I didn't. So I'm glad you told me that. And then it's like, hey, then it's all good, Let
me ask you this, though. Here's one critique that did cause me to pause and think about it. And this was Dr. Walker, a professor. I forget what university she's at, but she said her issue was that this perpetuates this obsession that Americans have with youth, and that an 81-year-old woman can't be on the cover and have the kind of traditional look that we think of when we think of our 81-year-old grandmothers or, our elderly, what 81 maybe look like at some point in time in this country. So she said that this was promoting this notion that you have to look a certain way, even when you're 80 and beyond, maybe 90 and 100. What do you think of that argument, that this plays into this culture of obsession, this American obsession that we have with being young and youthful?
So I would say that the critique we have, human beings have a fascination with youth and vibrance, right? This is not an American thing. I think this is a part of what, in terms of the human condition, we're always focused on age and how old a person is. Let me also add that, my colleague was talking about Jane Fonda. And when I saw the photo, I would have loved to saw, I know you have Megan Good, but I know that, look, there's this running joke about particularly Black women in terms of how Black folks in general, but Black women, how gracefully they age. I would love to send a 75, 80-year-old sister on the cover because, Martha Stewart looks great. But, I know some Black women who are 70, 80, they look like they're 40 and 50 without any cosmetic surgery. So shout out to those sisters out there who would just have the melanin popping and just look good in general. But listen, like I said, I think with Sports Illustrated, this is also part of the what they do in terms of putting this out there and then people debate it. They're tweeting it, talking about it on Instagram, right? This is all part of the plan. They want all this. They wanted, people to talk about why Martha Stewart should be on there, should she be on there, et cetera. And like I said, this is really about, how intersection of ageism and sexism. But kudos to her. But and like I said, there are plenty of Black women I see all the time, including my family, who, Martha Stewart's age, who look fantastic.
Give the
I got to make a correction. It's not Megan Good. It's Megan Fox. So this Sports Illustrated 2023 has Megan Fox, Martha Stewart, Kim Petras, and Brooke Nader. So I apologize for that mistake. I want to correct it. It is not Megan Good. It's Megan Fox. I'm sorry, Megan. Got to give you your props. I'm going to post some of these pictures of Megan Fox because she's looking hot. I hear what you all are saying, but maybe this paves the way, right, Professor Walker? Maybe with Martha Stewart being on this cover, maybe the next cover will be an African-American, a Latina woman who is in the same age category. It always has to be somebody, right, that breaks these barriers so that other folks can come behind them. So she broke a huge barrier by being on this cover. And obviously has broken the internet because you got people talking good and bad. So I think the cover had its intended purpose, which was to get people talking. So you want to talk about this, Professor Walker, so we don't have to talk about your Florida, but we got to talk about your Florida every time I see you. I didn't plan these stories. I don't plan for Florida stories to break on the day that you're on this show, but somehow they just fall on this day. So help us understand this bill your governor in Florida has signed that is going to defund diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and courses that teach about race.
So, Areva, we've been on your show. We're talking about this, and I've been talking about it. Obviously, as a professor, at an institution in the state of Florida, and this is five-alarm fire for democracy, really overall in America, because historically Texas has been this template for right-wing legislation. Now, as I said on your show, I think previously, Florida is the right-wing capital of the United States, and that's clear, right? Not only obviously DeSantis in terms of what he's done, but also his soon to announce run for the Republican nomination of president. So what does it mean? It's a problem for the state institutions. Let me highlight one thing. The state institution of Florida is rated #1 by U.S. News and World Reports in terms of its overall state system. Excellent schools. But the university where I'm at and other state schools are going to face serious problems retaining and recruiting Black and other minoritized faculty. And I can tell you, I've already talked to people, I'll just leave it in terms of generally at a post-secondary institutions in the state of Florida, those who are planning to leave and individuals I know for a fact that did not take jobs at institutions in the state of Florida, precisely about the issue we're talking about. Let me also highlight, because, I got to get this in, Areva, as a Philadelphia native, I'm a transplant, and I just got stuck I'm getting stuck with these people, but I'm still fighting the good fight.
No, and we're going to put that on your Chiron. I live in Florida, but I'm really from Pennsylvania. Okay. But can you break down more about what this bill will do, Professor Walker? So they're not going to fund DEI courses that were being taught for professors or courses for students? I'm just trying to understand if we know the nuances of the bill.
Yeah, so one of my other hats I wear is I'm Vice President of Black Faculty and Staff Associate at UCF. So we've been, very involved in talking to the administration about this language. So what it essentially does is it will now state institutions to fund various DEI programs. What does that mean specifically? We previously had a VP of DEI, but the university over the last couple of months changed that title for seeing this happen. What does that mean? I think there are other issues we talk about in terms of scholarships for Black and other minoritized students. It's one of the things that we don't talk about. We talk about increasing number of Black students, et cetera, at colleges. It's going to impact that. It's also going to impact programming, right? So if we want to bring someone like yourself to the institution, and maybe the Student Government Association or the Black Student Association wanted to bring you, is this considered to be DEI? The other thing is, for people, faculty members like myself, there's very specific language in it when it talks about, and if you like me, I can even read it for you, in terms of the kind of language that it has here in the bill that relates to professors in particular. And what it says is that based on theories that systemic racism, sexism, privilege are inherent in institutions of the United States were created to maintain social, political, and economic inequities. Essentially, these kind of topics cannot be discussed. My argument is that is the entirety of America itself since we arrived.
Wait a minute, you can't talk about systemic racism?
And I read for you what is exactly what's in the bill. What they're telling you is you can't have discussions, I guess, when essentially frame it that racism is somehow inherent in institutions in the United States. But
let me ask you this. Let me play devil's advocate. You can't say systemic racism is pervasive throughout institutions in this country. Can you ask the question, how many of you think that racism might be pervasive in our educational, health systems, et cetera? Can you frame it as a conversation where you're asking versus making a declarative statement?
I think that that's the purpose of higher education. But what I would counter with that is, if you do ask that question, does a student who doesn't even want to have that discussion then file a complaint? Remember, we're going to have discussion during your show about the movie, right, in the same state. So there's a pattern here. Do you want to risk that? Do you want to risk even having a conversation and then worry about you're on Fox News?
Wow. So, okay, let me ask you, Dr. Domingo, you are a DEI consultant, professional. You do DEI training. Yesterday, I talked about an article in the New York Times where DEI was being expanded, and they were replacing the I with B. And the B is belonging. And some corporations said that they got a lot of flack talking about DEI, and they were making people uncomfortable having conversations about systemic racism. So they are expanding into something called belonging. Maybe it's DEIB or DEB, but where everybody gets to feel included. Now, some folks like me said this is just another way white folks are going to, address or not address the elephant in the room, which is systemic racism. So let's not make anybody uncomfortable, and let's now make everybody feel included. Like, let's just give all the little kids a soccer trophy, even if they sat on the bench the entire season. What are you feeling about this as a DEI, maybe DEIB professional?
Yeah, they're adding DEIB, and they're also in some cases adding DEIBA for accessibility as well. And I experienced this actually under Trump. There were organizations that I spoke to that when he put out his ban, they were basically saying, yeah, we know you talked about this before, but now you can't talk about it because we might lose some money. So you have to kind of nuance it in different ways. And so this is really going to affect, and as you know, Florida is the leader, but other states are doing this. You can talk about Oklahoma and other places that I've been across this country. And so my concern is that we need to have people who are able to fight back. We also, as it relates to these educational institutions, the Department of Education needs to really get involved as it relates to removing federal dollars from anything that supports anti-DEI efforts in any way, shape, or form. And that's part of the heart of my book, Last About Black People.
Okay, Dr. Domingo, I'm going to let you talk about that. We got to take some news and sports, and there's some breaking news coming out of Kentucky that I will share on the other side. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm young, gifted, and black.
KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation in scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig? KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
Tell me you're the boy that girl. You are young, gifted, and black.
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA.
Breaking news out of Kentucky. Ally of Mitch McConnell and Trump-backed Daniel Cameron has won the GOP primary for Kentucky governor. Cameron, the attorney general, will face Andy Beshear, a popular Democrat who is seeking re-election in a typically deep red state. And you will recall Daniel Cameron is the attorney general that supported the police during the botched raid by police that resulted in the murder of Breonna Taylor. Wow, this is interesting development. We knew he had higher aspirations. We knew Cameron was going to run for governor. Any surprises from you, Dr. Debinga, that Cameron, African-American Attorney General for the state of Kentucky, will be the GOP primary candidate?
Well, definitely not surprised. I think that what it does show is that in many of these races, Trump still does have a little bit of cachet, and there are people who work in Trump's administration who are also running against him, who Trump chose not to endorse, but they were running on many of Trump's ideas, like some of the anti-election stuff, the election denial. They were running on that. So what's interesting about it is that people can still win with Trump's endorsement, but not necessarily if they're running on many of the things Trump was trying to run on again as relates to the election denial and some of those other policies. So I think other Republicans will be taking note of that as these other primaries go on into 2024.
So, Professor Walker, Donald Trump has endorsed Cameron. He said he was, absolutely outstanding in every way, when Trump uses all of those extra adjectives. So he's done that with Cameron. At the same time, the Louisville NAACP called on Cameron to resign over what they felt was his, position that he took on law enforcement in the fatal police shooting of Breonna Taylor. This is going to be some matchup. You got Andy Beshear in this ruby red state trying to beat Daniel Cameron, who is, according to Donald Trump and others, a rising star in the GOP party.
Yeah, he's a rising star. You know, Areva, I think I mentioned I worked on Capitol Hill, so it is common knowledge that if you're a Black and a Republican and you can put a couple sentences together in some situations, not be able to, then you are always going to be a rising star. So let me just kind of put that out there. I think Cameron has also made it clear in terms of his anti-Black approach. You talked about his Breonna Taylor, and I certainly preached to you as a civil rights attorney. But many of us in the Black community feel like you said, he advocated for police and didn't do his job. So you can't trust someone who's gotten Donald Trump's backing of all his crimes, and the future indictments forthcoming. And then secondly, Donald Trump is anti-Black. I always like to remind people that even before remember birthism. Let's remember, people make argument he's not racist. He said the first Black president of the United States was not a question whether he was born here. That is racism. Cameron is similar to Clarence Thomas, cut from the same cloth. And there are unfortunately some brothers and sisters out there who embrace anti-Blackness to ensure that their career continues to rise. And just another example.
Yeah, Dr. Dibinga, Cameron has definitely been an anti-woke candidate. He's been one of the candidates leading this fight, warning against indoctrination of children in schools, fighting about teaching accurate and, factual history to our kids around race issues. He could be pretty dangerous, though. Black folks, as we are called. He's articulate. He's well-spoken. He's a former football player. He's a lawyer. He's not bad on the eyes. He kind of checks a lot of boxes for Republicans.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's somebody who's definitely more dangerous than somebody like a Herschel Walker, for example, who was, just to be a figurehead. He definitely has the intelligence to take himself to the next level in Kentucky, but we have to be mindful. Kentucky, places like North Carolina, because of redistricting, they have these situations where they have these Republican majorities and super majorities, but they don't win statewide. And so when it comes to the governorships, and so what Bashir has to do is he has to really run on these hardcore issues. He has to run on guns. He has to run on what's happening with the schools. He has to run on what's going on as it relates to abortion and a woman's right to choose, and put Cameron on the spot and on the defense at every single juncture. And if he does that, I think that he has a good shot to maintain his governorship.
Yeah, that's a race we need to watch, because not only see Trump endorsed, he is a protege of Mitch McConnell. And we know that those folks that consider themselves somewhat still reasonable Republicans who support Mitch McConnell may be inclined to support Cameron, even if they are never Trumpers. So it's a race we're going to watch. I want to go back, though, to the conversation we were having, Dr. Dibinga, about this DEI-B notion. And you said this isn't obviously just happening in Florida. You've seen it happen in other states. And you said you yourself have seen corporations now pushing back on this notion that diversity, equity, inclusion is something that should be a priority for corporate boards, corporate CEOs. What are you hearing about just this whole notion, when we talk about inclusion and equity? Is this a thing of the past?
Well, as I was saying, under the Trump administration, they were definitely pulling back and a little bit concerned about language they can say, especially if they felt that they can be the target of the Trump administration. Under the Biden administration, they were definitely more energetic about being able to say the things that they said again. But what we are seeing, however, is what we all know, diversity fatigue, where people feel like, okay, we went into that, we talked about it, George Floyd, rest in peace, and some other stories have come up, and yeah, that's bad, but people really want to move on. And quite honestly, many conversations have been switching to areas relating to gender and identity, and some of the things relating to racial issues have been kind of put on the back burner. There's kind of like a cycle that goes as relates to these conversations about diversity. And so for those of us who do this work, somebody like myself who doesn't only focus on race, we look at all of these issues, we definitely have to make sure that we're being mindful of that. But we have to push these organizations to make sure that just because there's not a major story like a George Floyd in the news, that when you look at that the employees, and people said this at when George Floyd was saying what's happening, Black Lives Matter, and like people were saying hashtags like Black Employees Matter, right? Don't go out there and make all of these statements to the public and you're not treating your employees right on the job. So I'm thankful to the ERGs, the employee resource groups, and these organizations that are still speaking up and demanding that these companies don't become too tired that they're not dealing with their issues as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting how America gets so worked up after, like you said, a big news story and all the money and all the commitment that was made to diversity and equity, and just slowly, started to dissipate to the point now where they're like, well, I don't even know if we should call it equity and inclusion. Maybe we should just focus on everybody belonging.
Yep.
It's kind of like Rodney King. Can't we all just get along? And why all the focus on those Black people, those brown people, or even women or LGBT? What about the white man? He wants to belong too. So let's design some programs that make him feel needed and wanted and loved. It's really mind-boggling. All right, Professor Walker, Chicago's mayor, Brandon Johnson, he's got a big job ahead of him. He ran on a progressive platform. He, at one point, talked about defunding the police. He backed away from that, though, talked about sensible policing. But Chicago is going into the summer months. And we know historically, for the last, decade or so, they've had a rise in violent crime, the use of guns, firearms, shootings, deaths even, that happened in the summertime. And I can think back during COVID, you saw all those bust and grab robberies that were happening on, Michigan Avenue. Folks were running into those expensive stores, breaking into them, grabbing expensive purses and bags and jewelry. And a lot, those are the kinds of things that will cause a mayor to lose an election. And some will say it was the way Lori Lightfoot handled things like the issue of crime, like the issue of public safety, that caused her to lose that election. When we come forward, we're going to talk about what the progressive union organizing Brandon Johnson has to do so that he doesn't find himself a one-term mayor in the city of Chicago. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest spot.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
There are millions of boys and girls who are young, gifted, and black.
I'm young, gifted, and black.
And that's a fact.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of...
All right, Dr. Debinga, what does Chicago's new mayor, Brandon Johnson, have to do to withstand what we know will be just a torrent of complaints if we see that spike in crime that has been historical in Chicago, particularly during the summer months?
Well, I think he was wise to back off of some of the original comments about defunding the police. And we know that he has to, appoint somebody to that position. And what he's going to have to do is, number one, he's going to really have to work on building a community policing model. The more people feel like they can actually work with the police as opposed to looking at them in many of our communities as we do as an occupying force, he's going to be able to make some progress. I know he has to deal with the alderman there as well. But if he continues to move with the mandate that, he did indeed win the election, and he brings some of the principles of being somebody who is on the progressive side, someone who's also a former educator who has worked with these students and been in the community. So he has a lot of ideas that can come into this into his mayorship. This idea is not about defunding the police, it's about pre-funding the community. And so if he can make sure that he's able to implement programs that help with after school, that help with people getting help in terms of resources, in terms of access to medicine and other things that summer jobs and things like that help people not be engaged in crime, we're going to see a decrease in crime. But he also has to be very proactive as it relates to what he's doing to prevent the guns from coming into Chicago in the first place. Everyone wants to talk about the gun violence here, but no one wants to talk about the guns coming in from places like Indiana and other places and how they're getting there as well. He can be more aggressive with that as well. It's not either or, it's both and.
Yeah, I feel for these mayors of these urban cities. These problems are so big and they seem almost intractable. I was driving down a street in Los Angeles, and the mayor of Los Angeles, only been in office a little over 100 days, Karen Bass. I think she's doing a phenomenal job working on one of the biggest issues here, which is homelessness. And it was literally like driving through Tent City. There were tents lined up on each side of the street. People who had literally built little homes. They had furniture, they had bikes, they had scooters, they had tarp covers. And I'm just thinking about all the tent communities that the mayor has cleaned up in the short time she's been in office. And seemingly, she cleans up one area and they pop up in another area. And these mayors get on the job and they inherit such entrenched, difficult problems, Professor Walker. I was thinking, oh my God, why does anybody want this job? Because you're coming into, like you're talking about this funding the community, Dr. Debinga, that makes sense. But most mayors have to move in a way that their city council allows them to move. They have limited power. And we know racism, that piece that nobody really wants to talk about, impacts how dollars are spent in states and cities. And we know in a city like LA, the whole issue of homelessness, so much of why homelessness is the big problem it is nationwide is because most of the people on the streets are Black. And there's just not the will to address homelessness and to put the kind of money behind it, because you have this systemic racism and folks saying that these folks are out there because they're drug addicts and they're lazy and they deserve to be out there. And I'd rather spend my money on, other kinds of folks. So when I think about that, yeah, Dr. Walker, it makes sense to invest in our communities, but we've been trying to tell people that for how many years, how many decades? But that's something seemingly they'd rather invest in police. and be reactive rather than invest in things and be proactive that we know can make a difference, like education, like healthcare, like housing. So how does a mayor like Brandon Johnson? I mean, that's a difficult problem.
Yeah, it's an impossible problem because the problems that he's encountered and his predecessors have encountered for decades is rooted in issues like housing discrimination, limited economic development. We talk about health disparities in terms of not having same race physicians or nurses. I mean, these issues require tremendous amounts of resources, not only from the city you could muster, the state, but also the federal government. But the country has never had the will. It is that simple. And you touched on it in terms of racism being a lot of the center of the challenges. We know that those who are unhoused are more likely to be Black. We know the Black veterans. We hear America talk about veterans all the time. We know Black veterans are more likely to be unhoused. These are issues that are decades in the making. And so I think that one of the things he should do is he should really look. He's a community organizer. Similar, we talked about President Obama, another Chicago, someone who lived from Chicago. He's really got to focus on these collaborations, right? So this idea that we're working collaboratively with nonprofit organizations, also city agencies. The other thing is he has to spend enormous amounts of money and resources in making sure there are summer programs, including opportunities for young people to have jobs. That's the key thing.
That's key. Get those kids off the street. Yeah, get them off the street. Give them something to do. Real quickly, Dr. Domingo, you teach. So here's this teacher in a K-8 school showing a animated movie, Strange World 2022. Somebody calls somebody, the authorities, the Department of Education. Next thing you know, this teacher is in hot water. This is a Disney animated movie. This is what we take our kids to see, right? These are the movies that you go to as a family. It has an openly gay character and somebody didn't like it. So this teacher now is being investigated by her school and the Department of Ed because she showed this movie. How can I get anybody to go into teaching if you can't show a Disney movie?
That's a good question. That's why a lot of teachers are leaving the profession. And look, at the end of the day, we see in situations like this, when DeSantis and these folks are out there saying that we want to respect the parents and all of that, it's which parents are you talking about? Really, because this teacher sent out the permission slip. And what's sad about it is the teacher who's saying, Jenna Barbie is saying, I didn't do anything as relates to indoctrination relating to diversity and inclusion. But first of all, that's what we should be doing. That's the first part. See, we already lost that part. But then the second part we see is that it's the Christian parents who are anti-LGBTQ, anti-diversity and the like. But here's the question, Areva, where are all of the other parents? All of the other parents in these classrooms who signed the permission slips, who said it was okay, they should be marching down to this other parent's office because she's a school board member and they have to speak up. When I spoke to teachers in Florida in December, I was talking to them about the importance of you are the children of people who are survivors from the Holocaust, who came to the civil rights movement, whose grandmothers fought for, or great-grandmothers fought for women's rights to vote. It's like, what are we doing here? They're getting over because people are afraid to challenge. What, you might lose your job? You're not going to lose your life like so many of our other activists have done. So we have to have people standing up in Florida. The parents who are for this have to stand up. The teachers have to stand up, and they need more of our support who don't live in Florida as well, because this is a national story, but this is happening to teachers every day, like I said, and just not only in Florida.
Yeah, and that's the question. And I always ask you this, Professor Walken. You say those activists are there, and I definitely want to do my part to help them get their message out, because all the stories we get out of Florida are DeSantis stories, all the horrible stuff he's doing, everything he's banning, everything that the small group of loud vocal parents are doing in these culture wars. But to Dr. Domingo's point, where are the voices of reason? The people that say, I take my kids to a Disney movie, and yes, I gave permission, and yes, I'll take my kid again to see this movie, and yes, I want to teach my kid about being gay, being lesbian, being trans, having friends who are Black, Latino, etc. How do we get those voices to be amplified?
So, Areva, in the past, we've had this racist idea of the silent majority, right? So I think that reason why you don't see, outpouring in states like, now you do obviously Black folks talking about it in other socially conscious white people. But the reality is, I'm going macro. Donald Trump got over 70 million votes. There are many people we interact with on a daily basis that believe this is okay. So in the state of Florida, Ron DeSantis just not long ago was reelected, and then we've seen all these policies. So the reason why is people silently agree with what he's doing. Now, not in the Black community, but there are other communities that will go nameless that voted for him, and knowing that he would institute these kind of harsh penalties. I would also remind people that Ron DeSantis also, as we talk about some of these issues, eliminated a Black congressional district. Okay, so we're dealing with an idea of philosophy, belief, and once again, I want to talk about anti-Blackness. This is at the center of this. So the parents who are not speaking out, some of them silently think this is okay.
That is an excellent point. We should not assume that those parents are at home like us, jumping up and down, ranting and raving about these policies. Many of them, as you said, are silently agreeing. They may be your neighbor. They may be that coworker sitting next to you on the job. They may be that person you ride the bus with, the person that, stocks your grocery and bags your grocery at the grocery store, because he wouldn't have gotten 70 million votes if 70 million people, and that's almost, that's a huge number of the people that vote in this country. And that's what's sad, I guess, and scary at the same time. But got to leave it there. Thank you so much, Professor Walker. Always a pleasure to see you. Stay strong in Florida. We got your back. Stay strong. Stand tall, brother. We looking out for you. We praying for you. We lifting you up. Thank you so much, Dr. Dibinga. Again, make sure you get his new book. It's out. It's called Lies About Black People, How to Combat Racist Stereotypes and Why It Matters. And give that book to your neighbor, to a colleague, to a friend, one of those folks that you think might be silently agreeing with the Ron DeSantises of the world. Make sure they get a copy of this book. When we come forward in hour two, we're talking about Black folks being killed in pedestrian accidents. Why are we dying at higher rates than other races? Stay with us right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station. KBLA.